Legendary producer Robert Evans once said, "Luck is when opportunity meets preparation." This is the Producers Lounge podcast, the best podcasts online for tips and tricks on producing great film, television, and web content. Welcome back for Season 2, Episode 24, hosted and produced by greaterandgrander.com. On this week's episode, we're chatting with Stephen J. Kung, who has produced and directed feature films and TV shows, including Dear White People, Fresh Off the Boat, and A Leading Man. We discuss moving up the ladder in Hollywood, positioning yourself for success, and a surprisingly large amount of time on health insurance in the entertainment industry. He is currently developing a TV series with stars and legendary filmmaker Justin Simien. If you have any questions or suggestions as you're listening, we'd love to hear from you. Let us know in the episode comments. Here now is my conversation with Stephen J. Kung.
Good. And then, so you're directing that and you're producing. What are you producing nowadays? I mean, other than this podcast. And
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm doing a bit of mainly like online stuff. Like my schedule has really become like swamped with the editing and directing of these 4 pieces over the course of 2022. But I also have something, I have a few features that I've developed that I want to try and produce. They're random stuff. Like one is a thriller, one is like a horror movie, you know. But like I need to get them where like they are more like budgetarily feasible, because right now there's too many locations and too many characters. So yeah.
Got to get that budget down for sure.
Exactly. So I wanted to talk to you, like, not just about what you're up to, but like where you've come from and where you're going. So where did you grow up originally?
I'm from Virginia Beach, Virginia. And
Uh-huh.
my parents are immigrants from Taiwan, and their parents are immigrants from China. And I grew up, Virginia Beach is it's like the buckle of the Bible Belt, right? It's very conservative. Pat Robertson's Christian Broadcasting Network was a 5-minute drive from my house. So that was the type of environment I grew up in. And when I decided to, when you grow up in Virginia, you don't really think you could do anything else other than like what other people are doing around you. And so when I had a friend who was working in film and TV after undergrad, I was like, how did you do that? And he's like, well, I just started interning, and when you work for free, anyone will take you. I was like, that's the secret. You work for free. And I was like, oh God. And so like I interned for the Discovery Health Channel at the time before it became.
That's right, because they're in like Delaware, right? Or
they're based out of Maryland. Close.
Maryland.
They're based out of Maryland. And I learned how terrible and cheap Discovery is.
Really?
They basically have what's called a vault. And most of their shows are just edited rehashes of footage that's already in the vault. And so with this new guy who like bought Warner Brothers with like the Warner Brothers Discovery merger, I'm like, why? Like you have Warner Brothers, which actually creates culturally changing content, versus Discovery Channel, which is like a business that doesn't create anything remotely memorable. And they treat their employees like shit. And so like, surprise. Anyway, I digress. But like my one internship working for the Discovery Channel was horrible. So much so that I was like, I have to get away from this, because DC is a good place for documentary and reality. I was like, I have to get away from this. And this was in the early aughties. I was like, I have to get away from this. I want to do narratives. The quickest way for me to get there is through film school. And so I applied to the START program. And then like,
so real quick, I just want to back up. Like, was there a particular moment working at Discovery where you realized, oh no, I don't want to do this? Like, this sounds terrible.
It was just the low budgetness of it all, which translates into narrative films as well, of course. But like, I remember going to IKEA, buying shit from IKEA, which is cheap anyway, assembling the furniture, and then having to break down the furniture and return it to IKEA. I was like, oh God.
For Discovery?
For Discovery.
Why? That doesn't even make any sense. Like,
it was bad. It was for a show, and it's like you couldn't just sell it off or give it to members of the crew. And I mean, it was an invaluable skill I learned for like no budget filmmaking, right? A couple of years ago, I made a short on my own dime. And we'll get to that, but that's the short that got me my first episode of television. But that
Right.
I did it with my own money. So for wardrobe, we went shopping and then I returned everything afterwards. I was like, oh God, this is taking me back to my Discovery days. I hate it so much.
Oh my God. But
Yeah,
then
so
Mhm.
yeah, go ahead.
But yeah, and then you said you got into Stark. What was the Stark application process like?
The Stark application is like the best application for me because the Stark program takes people who have no background in film. They love people with no background in film because
Mm,
they can teach you film. What they can't teach you is, and it's sort of like the USC application in general, like they can teach you production, but they can't teach you taste and style and aesthetics. So those applications are more about like who your influences are. The Stark application was more like a business school application. Like, what are your ambitions? What are your plans for Hollywood? And then a little bit about like artistic influences, but they welcome the fact that you don't have any background in it. And it's very different from like, and so their students are very different from like the UCLA students. I'm a mentor in the UCLA producers program right now, and
oh, nice.
they all have backgrounds in film and worked in like production or advertising and stuff like that. And you're dealing with, yeah, it's very different when they've been working for a while than people who are just brand new to it.
Interesting. Wow, that's really good. That actually makes a lot of sense because of my own application when I applied to get into the production program. But I'll tell you that story another time. But so okay, so you got into Stark. Um, what was the Stark program like? Because I've met a few people who have taken the Stark program, and they all have really great things to say about it. Um,
Yeah, the START program, it's like a litany of guest speakers of like working professionals throughout the industry who will give you like a really good taste of what it's like. And in a lot of ways, so in addition to like learning everything the production program learns, we don't master any one of them. We're like jack of all trades, master of none, right? So we learn a little
right.
bit of screenwriting, a little bit of directing, a little bit of sound, a little bit of VFX. Um,
Mhm.
every we learn a little bit of everything, which is great. We do it in 2 years as opposed to 3, which is even better for like, student debt purposes.
Mhm.
And I'd say students in the STAR program are more prepared and we have thicker skins for the real world just because we get to like talk to all these bitter executives and bitter filmmakers. And so maybe because of that, I also think like there's greater churn. I also think like we're also the first to drop out because
Oh,
we already know how hard it is. We already know like, and we feel like it's sort of that feeling when you first graduate from undergrad, you know all these things, and then you're underemployed, right? So it's the same thing with Stark. You feel like you know everything about producing, and then the first thing you do is you PA, which you didn't need to go to the Shark program to do, right? So you're just like, what am I doing this when I should be up at the top? And it sucks when you like realize you know more than your bosses, and that's always like really weird. Um, and then it's just like, oh, I have to pay all these dues, and it's just like I might as well just go to law school. And like after I graduated from the Strike program, I had a hard time getting promoted through the chain, and I did consider going back to law school. I even took the LSATs. It wasn't until do you know Dave O'Brien? Like
I might recognize the face. I don't place the name.
Dave O'Brien from the production program was like, I am producing an indie feature. You have a degree in producing. You know how to UPM. Why don't you UPM this? And like, it wasn't until like after suffering in assistant land for so long, it wasn't until like I was in charge of my own destiny and like
And
where I
that
felt
you,
like, oh, like this fits. But to go back to the film school thing, so when I was at film school, I did internships at CAA and Focus Features when they first started.
oh, those
And
are
then
big. Yeah.
yeah, and then my assistant jobs right out of Stark were working for Ed Saxon as his assistant, and he's now the chair of the Stark program. And I also worked for Paris Barkley on the show In Treatment. He was the director's assistant. And then I worked on Mad Men as Matt Weiner's assistant. And of those 3 jobs, I got fired from 2 of them. So it was really I was really ready to leave the industry. And then I took the LSAT and I did terribly, even though I did really well the first time out of undergrad. Like my brain had changed. I was in a really terrible place. And so working that UPM job, like being a filmmaker and not just an assistant, really saved me. And so one valuable lesson I learned was like, when you get tired of working for other people, working for yourself can be really gratifying and save you.
And just to give some context, that UPM job was the man who shook the hand of Vicente Fernandez?
Yes. So that was, do you know Elia Petridis? He was also a production.
Oh, yes. He's doing real well. Yeah.
Yeah, that was Elia's film. And so I got to know him through that. And that was, it was the show that helped change my trajectory, because what it did was we decided we wanted to join unions. And so, because you can make a lot of connections through the union. So we decided to flip the show while we were on it. And we budgeted to flip the show, knowing we could do that. And once we did that, we got grandfathered in. So I got into the DGA, grandfathered in as a UPM. Through that, I got to go to the Asian American Committee. For those who can't see, I said I was Asian earlier. Yeah, so like I got to do the Asian American Committee, and that really helped me build my connections and my confidence. So that was really great. It was a really great experience.
That is awesome. That is awesome to hear. And of course, for those who don't know, like the DGA program, like once you get into the DGA, you have a lot of resources, not just professional, but also feasible resources like health insurance, which is so critical for a lot of people.
You have to qualify for health insurance. You have to earn 36 or 38 a quarter to qualify for health insurance in the following year. And everyone says this about their health insurance program. The DGA likes to brag that they have the best health insurance. The WGA, which I'm also a member of, likes to brag they have the health insurance. And IATSE, which I was also a member of, likes to brag they have the health insurance. Out of all three, the best insurance, well, it depends. Like if you like Kaiser, the IA insurance is the best. And I sort of love Kaiser. But if you like Blue Cross and choosing your own thing, the DGA plan pays for the most out of all the plans. So the cheapest plan is actually the DGA plan.
Interesting.
Insider info for you.
Good to know. So then,
in addition to the health insurance, you also get access to workshops, which is really great, and also like networking opportunities. Like there was a meet and greet with showrunners and executives. So, and as you know, this is a business about connections and relationships. So that all helps a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. If I could share a little bit of my own story, I joined the Producers Guild, I think in 2012-ish. And I started going to events frequently. I haven't been to a lot of events after the pandemic, but I got to meet a lot of people. And actually one of the jobs I got on a show called A Haunting at Silver Falls 2, I was a producer on that, and I was hired by the executive producer because we met at a PGA event. The executive producer, by the way, a guy named Rick Dugdale, really smart guy, really, really on top of stuff. And he's doing amazing stuff too. But yeah, those professional networking workshops are amazing once you get to a certain level. And I realize that because a lot of I don't know if you fell into this trap, but there's a lot of places that advertise themselves as networking events, pay $20 and show up at a bar and meet people who are all at the same level. No, that doesn't take you anywhere. But once you get to a level like the DGA or the PGA, you do get to meet more professional people, more experienced people who actually have the power to hire someone.
Yeah, the best events you never have to pay for, unless it's a union due. How's the health insurance at the PGA?
Non-existent.
Well, that sucks.
Yeah. I mean, they do have kind of a group insurance plan that's more of an HMO that I have never really joined because the couple of times I've looked into it, it wasn't worth it.
While we're on the topic of health insurance, which is very important for everyone, by the way, like during my long bouts of unemployment in between, I got on Medi-Cal. And when I got a new gig, I would try and get off of it. But since it was so hard to get off of Medi-Cal, I, after trying once and like reinstating, I decided to just keep it. So even though I have guild insurance, when I qualify for guild insurance, when I'm on it, I use that. But when I run out, like for instance, I'm currently on Medi-Cal now, but my new WGA insurance doesn't kick in until July. So I'm just going to keep using Medi-Cal till July and then just use that. And then hopefully I'll stay on that for a while. But like if it runs out, I'll just go back on Medi-Cal. It's like, yeah, it's a very convenient thing to have, like to live in a state with Medi-Cal. I have to say it's fabulous insurance.
Yes, thank God for socialism.
Yes, I know, right?
But yeah, I've been on Medi-Cal a couple times. It was always hard to find find providers because this is more like inside baseball and California politics, but they intentionally limit the number of the budget for customer service on Medi-Cal, which I found very interesting.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah.
There is a Medi-Cal secret that I don't know if you know of. So I was on Kaiser when I went onto Medi-Cal. And if you're on Kaiser, you get to keep your Kaiser plan, but Medi-Cal will pay for it. So it's like I was getting paid. So I'm on like the gold premium Kaiser plan because I don't pay anything and I get access to all of Kaiser, which is pretty sweet.
That is a good life hack. So,
grandfathering into the HMO and grandfather into Medi-Cal. That is the one takeaway I want your listeners to get from this.
Definitely. So going back to 2012 and the man who shook the hand of Vicente Fernandez.
Yes.
You were UPM on this. You got a lot of confidence because you said you were working for yourself again. What else did you like? What was the next step for you? Where did you take that newfound confidence?
Well, I decided now that I've produced my own micro budget feature, I can write and direct my own feature. And so with that, and part of this is like the support of family, right? Because one thing that makes it very prohibitive for people to get into the industry is resources. And luckily, my mom was doing very well. And so she's like, I want to help you put together the funding for an indie movie. And I was like, okay. So I wrote the script. We made it, we did it DGA. We did it on a $500,000 budget. And that went to the major Asian American film festivals across the US, Taiwan, Canada. It was a really great experience to tour the film festival circuit with your own feature. It's called A Leading Man, and it's streaming now on joysauce.com. Even though I made it in 2012 and it was playing the film festival circuit to 2015, this is our first streaming deal. And it just happened this past month.
Nice.
Even though we had a theatrical release along the way that was not great. But point being, at that time in 2013, when it was in its like 2013 and 2014, Asian American films were not that accepted in the mainstream media. One can argue that they're still not as accepted, which is true. Like, if you look at the there are only 3 like major acquisitions festivals, I would argue, right? Like Toronto, Cannes, and Sundance. And if you're not at one of those film festivals, which like take 99% white films, you're sort of out of luck. And you have to like go to all like the regional film festivals for distribution. And a lot of the distributors who haunt those film festivals are less than scrupulous. So
I'm curious, would you call those distributors, because I've had some interactions with those kind of people too, would you call them predatory?
Some are, some are not. I would say
some...
maybe 50-50. You just have to figure it out, or talk to friends and or friends and producers who've worked with them. Make sure you do your research. Like, we got picked up by a first-time distributor, and we were their first film, so there was no one for us to call for a reference. But they did give us a small minimum guarantee, and no one else was willing to do that.
Nice.
So after making my feature film Leading Man, that's where my career really started taking off. So because I wrote and directed it, I was like, well, I would like to continue this television writing path, and I would like to continue this directing path. And so I used that movie to apply to the Disney ABC directing program. And that got me in, and then I applied to then that helped get me an episode of Fresh Off the Boat. And that story is basically, even though my feature got me into the program, it wasn't enough to get me an episode of Fresh Off the Boat, because A Leading Man is a drama and Fresh Off the Boat is a network comedy. And so even though I was in the program, I decided to fund my own short. And so I got all of my friends from film school to like work for free, and made it on a dime, like made a $6,000 short that was shot in one day. And that was the sample I used to get me that Fresh Off the Boat episode. And then, so that's the directing side. And then also there is some direct momentum on the directing side, because I'm currently in the Paramount Directing Initiative, and that is guaranteeing me an episode to direct of a CBS show. Nice. So that will either happen this year. Well, it was theoretically supposed to happen this year, but because it's the first year of the program, they're still working out all the kinks. So it'll look more likely like next year. So that's on the episodic directing front. And then on the episodic writing front, during the in-between unemployment days, I was temping at Lionsgate as an assistant. And so when I was doing social media posts about A Leading Man, someone was like, hey, why don't you apply for this writer's assistant job on this gig, on this show? So that was Graves. And then from Graves, I went out to Dear White People as the writer's assistant. I got promoted through the ranks to script coordinator, and then finally to staff writer on its final season. And then after that happened, COVID happened in the middle of season 4. And so where Justin Simeon is usually in production, like directing episodes, I was like, well, he has to be developing right now. I would love to pitch an idea for Dear Asian People, a potential spinoff. And so I got him on board, we got Lionsgate on board, and then we pitched The Town last year during the middle of like hashtag stop Asian hate. And you had all of these studios paying all this lip service on social media on like, hey, like we want to help Asians. And the truth is, like, as content creators, we're in a unique position to help Asian Americans and change the dialogue about Asian hate, and that is to create shows starring Asian Americans. And even with this pitch, and even at the height of this hashtag, we were getting passes one by one. And with pitching 8 buyers, with 5 had already passed, with 3 left, I decided to write this letter to the 3 remaining buyers, putting the pilot in the context of what was happening in the nation at large, and saying like, look, you're gonna have to, if you really want to do something about this, you need to make this show. It's about race, it's about Asian Americans, it's about not seeing us as the perpetual foreigner, it's about seeing us as 3-dimensional leading men and women. And luckily Starz was like, yes, let's do it. So they bought a pilot, they ordered a pilot script with the option for 2 additional scripts, and ordered a Bible. And I just turned in the revised network draft of that a month ago. And so that is where the writing is with that. And one more thing on the writing thing, I got a general with Crown Media, and I pitched them an idea for a soft pitch. At the end of the general meeting, they're like, anything else you want to do? And I was like, well, why not like Love Actually, but with the Lunar New Year? They're like, write us up a paragraph. I wrote them a paragraph on it. 5 months later, they're like, we have money to do it now. You want to do it? I was like, sure. So like currently I'm writing a pilot, an autobiographical Asian American comedy pilot for Starz, and a Lunar New Year movie. So that's exciting.
That's incredible. That is like, congratulations. That is amazing. And it sounds like not only are you writing these, but you are taking like the active producing, spearheading the project approach, where you're reaching out to them directly, taking these generals, setting these up, and moving forward.
One of my mentors, Yvette Lee Bowser, says she never got a job through her reps. She had to get them all through herself. And it's true that no one will fight for your career as much as you will. And you could wait to I could wait to get staffed again, or I could just like take my destiny into my own hands and work for myself and write the projects I want to see on the screen. And there's something really different about that energy when you do what you want to do instead of trying to like pretend or like sell your ability to write someone else's voice, right? Like,
Right.
that, at least that's the case for me. And I had like a heart to heart with Ken Chang, who is a principal in Crab Club, and he says that like, yeah, I wanted to staff so bad I forgot about my own voice. And when I started like concentrating on the projects just I wanted to, that's when things started happening. And so I think it's easy to think about employment and gigs for hire, but at a certain point, everyone in this industry is a producer. Whether you're an actor, a screenwriter, a director, everyone has to have some sort of producerial ability. And I feel like we can really excel when we tap into this, tap into our producerial knowledge.
Nice. So you've had a lot of success in recent months, a lot of success in pitching and developing and putting these together. What have you learned in terms of how to work a room and how to get into the room with these executives? I assume these are all people you already have existing relationships with. So when you're in there pitching, how do you really get them to, well, like I said, how do you work a room and how do you get them to give you the yes? And do you get more no's than yeses?
That's a really good question. I think part of it, so when I was pitching around Plan A, it was originally called Dear Asian People when we were pitching it around, and it helps to have desirable elements attached, right? So Justin Simeon, the creator of Dear White People, was in all of the pitches with me. And we got my colleague, my coworker, Leanne Bowen, who was a producer writer on Dear White People, but now produces and writes Ted Lasso, right, which is like one of the hottest comedies on TV right now. She's in on the meetings. So even though I'm doing the talking, the fact that these two really established writer producers are backing me sells my credibility and makes the package more desirable, right? Not only that, but the head of Lionsgate, the president of Lionsgate, Kevin Beggs, was also in all the meetings. And that just sort of, when you have people at the highest level of the studios backing you and on the pitch with you, and even though they just like make a 1-minute introduction, that's enough to be like, hey, we're willing to bet on this person. They have a good story to share. So I think that was good. And one valuable lesson is that you never stop selling. I don't know if people will agree with me on this one, but the fact that I had pitched 8 buyers and with 3 remaining buyers left, it took me to write a letter to push it over the edge, right? So when you write a thank you note, you're still selling yourself. When you write a follow-up email, like trying to shame them into buying your pilot, that is also part of it. And there were follow-up conversations as well, right, to sell Plan A. So like Christina, who was head of Stars at the time, had extra conversations with Justin Simeon without me being on the call about buying the project and doing the project. And it was basically him reassuring her that it's got his thumbprint on it and, it would be a success, so like conversations are ongoing, and don't think that one conversation, that one pitch meeting is the end of your pitch, because the pitch extends all the way past that to the thank you notes, to the calls, to the friends you have who call the studio for you, to like, it just doesn't stop. So that is my philosophy on that. And as for the other project, the Lunar New Year project, that was a fluke, because when I pitched it and they told me they didn't have money for me, I wrote that paragraph. They're like, this is a great idea. We don't have money for you. I was like, well, I'm just going to develop it myself because I think this is a great idea for a project and it's very commercial. And it wasn't, and so I developed it into a full 20-minute pitch with my reps, and we made a list of producers. We were going to take it out on the town, and and it was December, and then Crown Media calls my reps and they're like, oh, we have a new executive vice president and we have money again. So do you want to do this or not? So that was a very different thing. But in terms of, I'd like to think I give good meeting, but sometimes, for all the successes I'm talking about, that's like 20%. 80% are like meetings I take where I pitch myself and I don't get the job, right? So let's talk very frankly about Fresh Off the Boat. So after Fresh Off the Boat, the showrunners loved me. And so even though that was their last season, they tried to bring me on other shows, right? So they, one was good friends with the EP of Atypical. They had worked together. So she got me a job. So Matt Kuhn got me an interview on Atypical to direct one of their episodes. And like, I pitched the fuck out of it and I didn't get it. And then now he's an EP. He's not the showrunner, but he's the EP on like Doogie Kamealoha. And I got an interview to direct that show. And I haven't heard back yet. It may come through, it may not, right? I was hoping for a yes sooner. And then I've also taken like another, like you interview for different, you get a lot more no's than yeses. So even though all it takes is one yes to like give you income for the year, right? So even though I'm working now, like there were a lot of no's involved with that. So if you're asking me for advice on meetings, I'm still trying to perfect my meeting, and I don't, and I don't know if I'm giving good meeting yet or not. Yeah.
Got it. That's good to know, because it makes it clear, like it's not, a lot of the networking advice I hear is like, just be a normal person, but you're not really a normal person. You're in there to sell a product. These aren't close friends. These are effectively work acquaintances. So these are job interviews. Yeah. So.
Yeah, they are job interviews. I think I'm going to try changing a tack, right? Like I was originally told to like, you'll just chit chat all day. So make sure you steer the conversation toward work. But I feel like what these executives really want to know is whether they like you or not. And so I'm like, what if I just made it all chit chat and made the last 10 minutes, when they're like, okay, we have 10 minutes before like I have to go to my next meeting, let's wrap it up. Then I could just do rapid fire, like, okay, this is why I'm good at directing. So maybe I'll try that. I don't know, because I've had referrals and people could put in good words for me on these past 2 interviews and like nothing has materialized yet. So I might just try doing a casual chit chat. I'm also more comfortable with myself when I'm just doing a casual chit chat when I'm in sales mode. So it's hard. You're right. It is a balance between chit chat, being friends, and sales mode. Like, I don't know if I've quite got the balance yet.
And also, there are all those people also who are like creative geniuses, but like, they're just not, I don't want to say not likable, but people who are just like all weird and awkward, but they're brilliant artists, like.
Yeah, I've met people who I think don't give great meeting. And I'm like, how are you working constantly? I'm just like sort of bewildered. But I also have to acknowledge that there are other factors involved. They're, beyond who you are that you can't help, right? I am a gay Asian man, and like people do have prejudices. People do have personal preferences. People also choose to hire their friends from high school. So like there are all these factors outside of your control. You can do your best in every meeting. You can be your best self in every meeting. And sometimes that's not enough. Sometimes the politics gets in the way, right? Other times, but for all the times the politics in the way, other times you can have the politics work for you. So I'm taking a lot of general meetings with all the executives at CBS through the Paramount Directing Initiative. Right. And we have to remind them constantly that like, look, you're supposed to guarantee me an episode to direct this year, but they forget that because they've been sort of like, oh, maybe land for forever, right? They don't want to stick your neck out for you, but you have to remind them like, look, like when we usually when we are usually denied a gig for political reasons, we're the political insiders now, right? We have like, you have to say yes because of the politics of the organization you work for. And if we fuck up an episode, you can totally throw the program under the bus, right? Because the studio has already vetted us as directors. So all you have to do is introduce us to the showrunners, right? And so even with like the cover your ass of it, of it taken care of, when you pitch yourself to direct, people are still hesitant. And a lot of it is racism. A lot of it is homophobia. A lot of it is like nepotism, factors outside of your control, right?
I'm glad you brought that up, because I've been talking with a lot of people on this podcast, one of whom was Carolyn McDonald, and she was actually Danny Glover's producing partner for a long time. And she told me a lot of stories on the episode, very frankly, about the outright bigotry that she faced. And I'm curious oh yeah, especially.
Oh, I mean, I say, oh my God, but like, yes, of course.
Yeah. And I'm wondering if there was a specific instance where you were going into Hollywood and the outright bigotry because you were gay or because you were Asian just kind of slapped you in the face.
No one will call you a racial slur to your face, right? But they'll do small things that let you know how they think about you. So I had a general meeting last year at a prominent comic book company, and they, I was Zoom meeting. When you wait for the Zoom to start, there's the title of the meeting. And so it said, meeting with Stephen Kung - Asian American. And I was like, oh, they put my ethnicity next to my name? Like, the fuck? So I was obviously in that for a diversity hire. And it was like the lamest meeting when, when you're meeting with someone and you realize they haven't read your stuff, and you're like, why did you want to meet with me if you haven't, you're like wasting both of our times. So like, it was, subtle stuff like that. In terms of microaggressions, I face much more of it once I do get hired, because like, if they're prejudiced against you, you just don't get hired and you don't know why, right? Because they're not going to tell you why they don't hire you. So, but yeah, in terms of like things said about Chinese people, I was in a writer's room on Love Victor, and a writer was like, yeah, my friend visited China. No, my parents visited China and they said it's dirty because, people shit on the streets there. And I was like, you can't say that. He's like, I didn't say it, my parents did. I was like, but the fact that you bring that into the room and like, I'm the only Chinese person, like it puts me in an awkward spot, right? So like I have multiple stories about that. Yeah, it's, the truth of the matter is like when you don't know exactly when you're being discriminated against, but the numbers don't lie. The hiring numbers don't lie.
Right.
And the Think Tank for Inclusion and Equity does a study on that every year. The DGA does, and the WGA does. They put out all the numbers, and there's a lot of backlash, and there's like a lot of this idea that because like diversity is hot right now, we're getting hired all over the place, but just like look at the numbers, like they're not lying,
Yeah, that is just fucked up. Let's just call it what it is.
And like television directing is still like 60% white men, right? Like not even like parity with women. So it's just like there's still all of these inequities at play. And and I have a lot of friends who are like, oh, you got this job because, not to me, but to my friends who are like, you got this job because you're the diversity hire. You took this, I could have been directing this job in your place. Just like really shitty things like that.
And people don't realize, like, in order to get to that level, like, let's say for argument's sake, you were a diversity hire, right? People who do get hired as diversity hires are like 2, 3, 4 times more talented because they had to fight through more bullshit in order to get through that funnel and actually get hired.
Exactly.
So
yeah, like let's say someone, like when I directed my first episode of Fresh Off the Boat, I had, I had gone to USC for film school. I had worked in writers' rooms. I was a UPM through the DGA off of Vicente Fernandez. I was, co-chair of the Asian American Committee at the DGA. I was a mentee in the DGA's first inaugural mentorship program, and I'd gone through all the DGA workshops. Like, no one else, like, when you compare me to like other first-time directors, and I directed a feature. So like, yes, I was plenty more qualified than any other first-time director. But maybe because I was Asian, people saw me as a diversity hire. But the truth is, like, as a Taiwanese American man directing a show about Taiwanese American men, I was the first Taiwanese American man to direct a show about Taiwanese American men on Fresh Off the Boat, and it was in its final season. I was the first and only one. They had Jude Wang, who's a woman, and Henry Chan, who's from Hong Kong, right? But only 3 Chinese-speaking directors in all of Fresh Off the Boat, in all 6 seasons, in 80 plus episodes. That is 60 times 12. No, in over 100 episodes. So that is abysmal.
That is very unfortunate. That is very unfortunate to hear that even these shows that are supposed to applaud diversity don't even have a diverse director's palette or a diverse writer's room. I don't know what the writer's room of Fresh Off the Boat looked like. You would know more than me, but
it got better as years went by. It got better, but like the first season had like 1.5.
Oh Jesus!
Out of like writing staff of 16, I think. And there are shows that still do that, like, I think, what's the Kung Fu show, Warrior? Like, I think there's like 1 Asian on it right now in the writer staff, but like the first couple of seasons had no one had an Asian last name. There could be people who are married or people who are APA, but like, if you look at the credits, there are no Asian last names in the writing staff. It was really sad. And no women too anyway, I'm not here to trash other specific shows. I'm just telling you there's a systemic problem we have to work on.
Completely understandable. But it sounds like you are in the process of overcoming that in terms of pitching Dear Asian People, which it sounds like the title's been changed to Plan A.
Plan A. Like A as in Asian. And also, when we first graduate out of college, everyone's got a plan A, correct? Before we go to plan B or C. So it's about that time in our lives when we first graduate from college. It's nice to be developing it, but whether it will be green light, whether it will be picked up to pilot, we will see, right? So there are a zillion different hoops you have to jump through to get to air. But I do think Starz is enthusiastic about it. We would be they don't have any Asian shows right now. So hopefully that will help. And then the great thing about the Lunar New Year thing I'm writing is like 99% of what gets put into development at Hallmark gets made because they are such a factory.
Let me ask, is there anything specific that you want to plug while we've got a few minutes left? Or
Yes, of course. So my feature film, Joy Sauce. So Joy Sauce is a new streaming platform that just launched this month. It's started by Jonathan Sposato, who is the founder of GeekWire, and it is a curated web blog about everything Asian American pop culture, Asian American politics, but mostly about pop culture. And we're starting to finally get our own sense of what Asian American culture is. And that's another story right there. But I think this site is really cool. I think it has tremendous potential. And I would encourage everyone to check it out. When they acquired A Lady Man to Stream, they actually wanted me to chop it up into 3 streamable episodes. So instead of seeing it as one complete feature, it is now 3 acts. And now all 3 acts are streaming. It's free to stream. They don't have an app yet, so you'll have to like plug your computer in or cast it to your TV or just watch it on your laptop or phone. But the site is joysauce.com, like soy sauce, but with a J in front of it.
I'm looking at the website now, and yeah, it looks like a really cool website.
And I would also encourage people to follow me at Stephen J. Kung at twitter.com.
And that is Season 2, Episode 24 of the Producers Lounge podcast. Thank you to my guest, Stephen J. Kung, for joining us. You can find out more about him by checking out the show notes and visiting our website at greaterandgrander.com. Our intro and outro music today was Hungaria by Lachey Swing. Our episode still image is by Ricardo Tomas on greaterandgrander.com. You can stay up to date by following us on social media at the handle greatergrander, all one word. Make sure to subscribe wherever fine podcasts are found, and also, if you like what we do, share this podcast with a friend group or community who you think will enjoy it. Join us next week for more cocktails and questions, and until then, keep producing dreams.